Okay, so I'm thinking to myself, all right, I'm talking to an 80-plus-year-old that I go to church with, right? And we're talking about life, and we're talking about just passing and really in the hallway. But I found the simple way in which she viewed life so refreshing. Like, there was wisdom, sage wisdom rolling about just simple things, but they'll be okay. You know, they're just going to have to go through this fight. Talking about kids, talking about the young ones that we teach in the Sunday school, and they're going to be all right. You know, they just need to make sure that they, remember what matters most and what hill to die on, and they'll be okay. They'll learn that along the way. And I thought, geez, that is deep, but it's not. And I hearkened back to this, how do I find out? How do I know? How do I find out what's what? And so here we have a world, and I'm just follow with me here. We've got this world full of talking heads, headlines that are sexy. Headlines are sexy. I mean, hurricane hits, New Orleans and so on and so forth. We've got a new freeze in Texas. We've got a blackout or rolling blackouts in California, and we've got earthquakes and we've got Boeing keeps losing parts on their aircraft, and we've got this guy's accused of this and this guy's accused of that. We've got a previous president that's going through countless trials right now, and they seem to be kind of unfolding pretty drastically, depending on who you ask, right?
Yeah.
The headlines on one end.
When I'm at the gym during my lunch break, I have the right TV is CNN and the left TV is Fox, and they're talking about the exact same story, and the headlines are different. And one it's not a big deal and it's a bunch of crap, and the other one obviously is
right.
The end of the world.
Trump is kicking butt.
Yeah.
And the other one, Trump is losing it.
Yeah.
He's losing his butt. And it's like the polls, though, seem to be...
And we know that. It's just fun to see it side by side at the exact same time as I'm running the treadmill there. So
you're hitting something. But I see on your wrist there you got a bunch of talismans. Not your watch. Yeah. Is that so you can beat your brother-in-law next time?
Some small reminders. He came over and asked for business advice the other night, and I thought, okay, now at least I'm one up on that part of life.
Hey.
He's beating me in golf right now, but he's still coming to me for advice.
You take what you can get. So you get these headlines, and you have this, and I'm thinking of this older lady that just kind of has that tempo. And I kind of started thinking, she wasn't around when Teddy Roosevelt was a controversial president. The belles of the ball and the debutantes and whatnots weren't exactly excited about the Rough Riders and his way of going about things. Whether he was a good president or not, I frankly will save that over here. Lincoln was a very controversial
at the time, right?
At that time.
Yeah. I mean, obviously revered now, but
sure, historian.
And that's my favorite president, so I've done it.
History is definitely very kind to Lincoln, but those times were not.
Correct.
I mean, it ended at the business end of a gun. So, I mean, the times were not good to him. And so we get to see, all right, I'm looking at a couple of our podcasts that we've done in the past, and I was kind of studying where we're going to go with this one today. I'm thinking, we have a lot of comments on Trump. We have a lot of comments, political comments, that are intriguing. And so keep the comments coming. I really enjoyed them so far. But what I want to drill down on is this 80-year-old, and then Teddy Roosevelt, Lincoln, going back to Washington, everything in between. We've had some crappy presidents. We've had some odd presidents. I mean, we've had some screwy presidents. I'd say the one that did the most damage in his tenure, and light us up if you don't agree, but FDR was nasty, policy-wise. And so...
With socialist policies?
It was real bad, real bad. I mean, so little bits at a time, the federal government grew from that point significantly on. So it never stopped growing from FDR on. So here we are. And we kind of I would like to see Trump come right out of prison, pardon himself, and become president. And then I'd like to see him shrink the federal government. That's what I'd like to see. I would like to see that. Just letting everybody out there know. I would love to see that. I don't think we can handle another Biden presidency, although if it happens, it happens. And we've seen some pretty hard times, and but I'm tired of giving away our rights as citizens. I'm tired of not having a say in where our dollars go. And I don't really love that. Okay, so back to 80-year-old. She saw her fair share of Nixon, and a president assassinated. I got to see Reagan get shot. I mean, that was pretty, shaking. Okay. Everything's always been screwy. If you really just take a big step back, life is kind of screwy.
Sure.
And so we're over here in today's modern era thinking that we're particularly picked on, but things are just screwy in a different way as they were 10 years ago, as they were 10 years before that, and keep going back decade by decade. And things are just screwy just in a different way. But some of them have, in my opinion, similarities. And here we have just a real screwy media. So you've got the CNN and Fox. You set that up well. We didn't even talk about that. Then you have, the Trump display that's going on right now, and what to make of that. I mean, it just doesn't look good on the left or for the Democrats to have this going on. Frankly, I think they're losing some voters out of this whole thing. And I think the right's kind of going, or the Republicans or moderates are going, well, now what? The options seem kind of odd. If you take a picture of a Lysol bottle 15 years ago, it doesn't say 99.9% germ or disinfectant like that. There wasn't Purell in every office that you go in not that long ago. The pyramid, the food pyramid, is a joke, and it's set up by big pharma, folks that want to get some money at some point, because they used to not call things allergies unless you were really allergic to something. They called them reactions. You're having a reaction. Now all of a sudden, everybody's got asthma, everybody's got allergies, and everybody's taking a pill for this and that and the other. If you got a rash, there's 47 different creams you should put on it, and okay, we've gotten excessive in our particular arena here. So Paige asks you, and you, well, us, but really you, because you're nice and you repeat the question, and you say, "Could you say that again?" And I need to work on that. Where do you find this? And so the backdrop is this.
Oh, where do you find the actual information? Where do you find? Yeah, I remember the question.
Where do you find it? And you answered it beautifully. So I'm not going to want to go there again because you really hit it out the park. So I don't want to give you another pitch.
Don't even remember how I answered it, but I appreciate it. Yeah, then I'm going to ruin my first answer.
Right, you might ruin your 1,000 batting average. You don't want that to happen. However, the fun thing for me is to look at it this way. I worked landscaping here in Arizona from 12 years old because my dad made me have a job. Once I was 12, apparently that was the age. I could go hunting with him, so I had to have a job, summertime job. So I landscaped. And landscaping, obviously for a student, you're 12, you landscape from May to September, because back then that was summer break. Those are typically considered our summer. Hot. Ask me how many times I put on sunscreen. I didn't even know what it was.
Yeah.
It didn't exist. Suntan lotion did, but sunscreen, I wasn't a thing, right? But in the 6th grade, all I'm hearing about is the ozone layer. And all I'm hearing about is UV. and all I'm hearing about is global freezing, then we're all going to be dead in 3 years or 5 years or 10 years or 8 years or 19 years or whatever the case might be. They project it out longer. Some would project it out shorter. We're gonna all freeze. It's going to be global freezing. Then it became global warming. Then it became. It's always something. And these seeds were planted. Now we've got what I consider hysteria over you're not driving an EV. You don't care about the environment and so on and so forth. And I'm over here thinking, well, I suppose the number one reason, no, I don't want to put it that way. A good reason, I'll put it that way. Yeah, I think that's solid. A good reason to choose Trump over Biden would be we're not ready for EV. We don't have the infrastructure, nor are we anywhere near close. So my eyeballs tell me this, and I wanted to see if I could answer it the way you answered Paige. My eyeballs tell me, I just drove into work. I got an 8-mile drive, not long, and I passed 17 gas stations. They all service fuel. Good old-fashioned fossil fuel. But I probably passed, maybe one charge station, maybe. Not that I noticed any.
Yeah.
And so we just simply don't have the resources for the millions and millions of gas guzzlers out there that are on our roads today, right now, as we speak, and to replace them with an alternative that is so far not available and not cost effective. And then we have the battery issues. Okay, so where did I get this information? I lived through all this. And now I'm seeing, do they just want to lock us in our houses and have us not go anywhere? I mean, that seems to be kind of the general momentum or the general direction is, cut them off at the knees, keep them grub-hubbing and keep them, under a roof, keep them working from home. That's a new thing that we've both been dealing with since COVID. But prior to COVID, we never heard about work from home. That was, I hadn't anyway. So I think that my rant here is I want to be more like that 80-year-old and just things are going to be all right. There's a lot of quirky out there, but drilling down on my argument or not necessarily argument, but maybe my just observation of we're a fuel-burning nation, and we're not a battery-operated nation yet. We may, little at a time, transition in that direction if it makes sense and there's the resources for it and all that jazz and there's free market for it. But how does that fit your mindset as far as where we're at there? Because I think global warming is a hoax.
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, I'll just put it in general senses of without going deep into the science on both sides because there's a lot of arguments on all of that. I'm going to just go back to where we talked about in previous podcasts of this pendulum shift, right? Of when we have something go super left, and I'm not even talking politically, let's just talk about the momentum of physics going super left, and then it swings back and goes super right. And we do these overcorrection type of things instead of setting up things to allow it to naturally take its course when we're worried about things. And that's not to be not concerned about different things, but let's take that exact example of what you're talking about with lithium batteries and fossil fuels and whatever else. Sure, I'm sure there's plenty of evidence saying that with the amount of people that we have on the roads, we're definitely burning more fuel, probably causing some challenges, whether it's full-blown global warming or just, environmental things we know that may cause.
Like the difference between an allergy and a reaction.
Right. At the same time, I've read several things where the amount of fossil fuel that we're burning to mine lithium to make the batteries is more substantial than we were actually burning
on the roads.
Right. And so again, it just shifts the momentum another place. It covers it up by saying, okay, when you're driving, you as an individual are responsibly catering to global warming or catering to the environment by driving a battery car without understanding that it took, to buy that battery car and to put that lithium battery in your car, you also, even though you individually are not aware of it every day as you're driving, it caused its own challenges on that. And so I know that California's pushed. I know Biden and the California governors at Newsom still.
They have a shot.
They have a law, I think, or not a law, or I don't know what it was.
Yeah,
it 2035. I thought it was 2030, but you're probably right. And the reason I even looked into that is, look, I believed the hype a little bit ago, and on my personal side of things, I invested in a bunch of EV stocks with the thought of the production was going to happen quicker. Like we got how many factories here just in Arizona?
Business advice.
I mean, we got Lucid here in Arizona, and I had a bunch of clients that are working for Lucid that were brought over, and it looked like it was hopping. It had Saudi money, and it looked like it was going to be. But their biggest problem has been not the car that they produce. It's gotten great reviews, this car. The problem is they can't produce it.
Right.
They can't. The manufacturing.
They don't
element
have the
of
juice to put.
Yeah, they just are not putting enough on the roads. Tesla's every third car I see right now is a Tesla. Yeah. But it's also taken them
a long time,
20 years more or less to get that going. And there's the way that they've done their marketing and done it, maybe not. I don't know if other companies are going to be able to compete with it. At least they haven't at this point. And I don't know if that's a production issue or just Tesla has a corner on that market. But yeah, I mean, it's. I honestly don't have enough of. I haven't watched enough CNN and Fox News on global warming to give like I said, I'm one that, and we've talked about this in previous podcasts. If I don't feel like I have 100%,
what would your mom
expertise knowledge on it, I just don't.
Here. Let's get to what would your mom think about this?
Again, you're hitting me with a topic that I haven't done enough. I don't even know if I've had that discussion with good old mom.
We got to change that. All right, I'm going vehicle market share. Tesla. Let's see where they're at.
Yeah, here in Arizona, it's crazy. I think I was just for fun. I was counting on the street on our way home from a basketball tournament, and I think it got up to 75 or 80 Teslas that I passed.
That's not bad. So AZ must be pretty big on Teslas.
I guess.
We are a big driving.
In our neighborhood alone, I've got a little gated community that's probably got 95 homes, and I would say there's probably 45 Teslas in that neighborhood.
4.2%.
And so that's not even.
So Ford and GM aren't necessarily nervous about
Tesla cutting into their market.
Right. Nissan, I just don't know Toyota, they're still worried about them.
Yeah.
So it does seem to me that I'm seeing a lot more. I thought 1 out of 3 was a bit heavy-handed, but I do see them a lot. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, there's no question. And I think to myself, because I was about ready to buy one a while back.
So did I. I went through that.
I was about ready to. I had one on the hook. It was a used one. I was going to pay 40 some odd for it, which now would have been. I should have bought it for an investment. I should have come to you for business advice. I should have bought it for a bloody investment because I could have sold that for a lot more right now. That said, okay, but we do a lot of work. At that time, I was doing a lot of work in Bisbee.
Yeah, no, that's why I didn't do it because I traveled too much.
Right, and for me to get from here to Bisbee, I would have to go 40 minutes out of my way to charge it. How long to charge it was an interesting thing. And then, because it's not like gassing up.
No.
You're waiting a bit and you're reading a newspaper or 4, and there is no 4 newspapers to read. So good thing you've got your phone being charged at the same time as your bloody Tesla. And so I'm like, oh, hell no, am I doing that?
And it's funny that you bring that up because I still feel the same way that you did then. And if I was to look, So some of look, if it starts like Lucid's, I know we're giving plugs to Lucid here, but they're apparently
I root for them.
500 maybe miles to the charge. That's getting a little closer to something that I'd be comfortable with.
Me too.
But the Teslas, and especially as the battery gets older, it starts, creeping down. My buddy who we were talking about this before about a golf tournament that I played in up in Las Vegas or St. George area, Utah. Good 6-hour, 7-hour drive. He took his Tesla up. Yeah. And Tesla owners, they for whatever reason, the inconvenience doesn't bother them.
Right.
But I know he stopped in Wickenburg and charged it for a couple hours. Then he stopped in Page because that's the
next stop.
Luckily for him, he played golf while he was charging, and he played 9 holes of golf and whatever. That's convenient, but that's that was a lucky time.
Everybody.
If he was in business, he's just sitting there for a couple hours. And then when he was on his way home, he stopped at the casino in Mesquite and played with us for a minute, but then enough to charge it and go. That would drive me bonkers. I can't wait in traffic without losing my mind. I couldn't just sit, and I can't. I'm not a scroller of my phone sitting on the couch. That's not me. I'm a little ADD when it comes to that. Well, we talked about that, and so
I gotta move.
And so sitting in the car and waiting for 2 hours for a Tesla to charge would drive me nuts. So that's why ultimately I didn't decide. It wasn't an environmental decision. I just couldn't.
I'd be walking around Wickenburg, but let me get back to the environment, because all these green sons of people, I'm okay with electric going that way, even though it. Theoretically, there is kind of a wash,
balance,
or if not, it may be even a little worse. If you're going green, you're going.
And maybe in the long term, there's arguments that eventually it'll.
I'm okay with all these things. As far as that, just calling that a dead nuts tie. That's what I do. Just call it a tie. I'm okay with that. If it makes sense to have an electric vehicle like you're talking about, and it's a comfortable, good running rig that gets you from point A to point B, and let's go with it. But another headline, I'm cool with that, creeping into that 4.2% that Tesla has right now, and whatever else the EVs probably maybe they make up obviously the biggest percentage.
And they all have theirs.
So the rest of it's probably de minimis at this point. California is ridiculous to think about because I've been there, you've been there. California's our backyard. That's where we go vacation. Not so much anymore, but it's where we used to. California has more old cars in it than any state in the union by a lot. I mean, they run their rigs into the ground because the cost of living there is, and they drive a lot, and they don't have the rims and I'm not talking about all Californians, but for the most part, you go on our freeway here, and then you just transpose yourself into a freeway in California. You don't see the sweet lifts and the rims and the slams and the paint jobs and we're pretty. We like to bling it up a little in Arizona. It seems. So that's fine. But over there, they're tools, and those tools go a long, long time, and they're usually, you've got your 70s vehicles in there, you got your 80s vehicles rolling all around in there. You get far more older vehicles, 90s, 2000s, of course, would be the most prevalent, but they're like 2007. I mean, I'd love to get that data, is what's the median age of a vehicle in California. And they're going to be all EV by 2035? There's no way. Like, you can't drive anything but an EV.
And maybe you're better versed on the law. I thought it was that any new production of vehicles, like any new sales,
there's
had
probably
to be
some
EVs
nuance to
from
it.
2030.
There's probably nuance to it, but it's ridiculous to me. It's just like, it's basically kicking a bruised up. You can't hardly find a spot in a Californian that hasn't been bruised.
Yeah.
And kicking them there. There's a spot. Boom. It's just another hickey for a Californian. I'm sitting here I'm basically thinking, all right, Paige asks, how does someone know what's BS and what's not? And I'm thinking 80-year-old lady that I talked to in church. I'm thinking your response to Paige. And basically it was, just to boil it down, eyes wide open. I can be, I could generate a pretty solid moderate opinion on something just by the world and the movements and this and that.
Sure. And I think that just living in the world, like you said, and I'm hedging my bets a little bit today because as an attorney, as just Jesse, I like to be fully informed and spewing out right information just because of the exact answer I gave to Paige. I don't want to say something that's a headline that I read that I haven't looked into far enough. Right. And so on global warming, like I have my, personal opinions, but as far as scientific opinions, I don't know that I've studied it enough to give a good enough opinion, but I live in the world and we've talked about the Teslas on the road. We've talked about the fossil fuel on the road. I think that I've also lived 43 years now and that hasn't been top of mind. Now I don't know if that makes me a bad person. Global warming has been an argument that's why I haven't dived into it as much because I just haven't cared as much as maybe some do. And maybe, like I said, maybe if it rears its ugly head in years down the road, maybe it was something I needed to take a more strong stance on. But I got 4 kids at home, and it's just not high on my. It doesn't affect my kids.
Education might be higher.
People may argue that. Oh well, what about your kids? You know, in 20.
Education may be higher on your list. Taxes might be higher on your list.
No, it's not even might be. It is.
Right. That's on. Right. That's your list. Right. Your kids, home, community. So my point here is, I do have an opinion, and I'm a little bit of the elder statesman here for a minute because I had to deal with acid rain. What the Sam hell is acid rain? Okay?
Yeah.
Never dealt with it. Heard about it every freaking day of my life. The ozone hole in the ozone layer. Ridiculous crap that we were talking about. And I'm landscaping is what I started saying from 12 to 19 years old. Okay? Never wore sunscreen. I may be in here with all sorts of stuff all over my cancered up face at some point, but it was, we live in Arizona. I mean, we kind of determined it was hot. We looked at the weather to see if it was going to rain or not.
So it was never whether it was going to be hot or not. It was going to be hot no matter what.
Right. I mean, once you're over 105 degrees, does it really damn well matter? No, it does not.
Yeah.
And you're out there landscaping all day long in this stuff, and in this ozone layer, in this, in this, that. And then as time very rapidly progressed, sunscreen. You got to have sunscreen on. And so I started wearing sunscreen somewhere in my mid-20s. And I'm thinking, I never really feel like I've been sunburned before then. Now all of a sudden I get sunburned.
I don't know.
And obviously, I'm not in the sun like I was back then, but I get, and so, okay, that probably has a lot to do with it. My skin was just used to it.
Do we know that, just a totally side note, but on the same topic, do we know the skin cancer rates
of then versus now? Guarantee your money back. And again, don't have the data, but you could put all the data you want from any source on global warming or global effect.
Yeah.
And I just say whatever. It's complete crap.
And that's, I was just curious because obviously you knew.
On this side of the table, it would be all, we're going to hell in a handbasket. And on this side of the table, ain't nothing.
Yeah.
Right. And so when you've got this hysterical stuff going on, I lived through hysterics where we had acid rain. We had global freezing was the big fear there. And then that morphed into whatever Gore started calling it at some point. And this all went really lickety-split, really fast. Once people stopped or started getting tired of protesting wars, the Vietnam War was they were really tired about, protesting wars. They had to have something to distract probably from the big Red Scare or whatever it was. But these headlines that you discussed, which I found I've been paying more and more attention to the catchy headlines now. Yeah. And we do it for our show. We do it and it's like, hey, Jesse and Dana talk about,
immigration reform or Trump or whatever thing.
We got Trump on the brain and we've got, is he, should he stay or should he go? Is he guilty or is he not? We got blah, 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 blah. But what we really have is just a bunch of misleading headlines a low information, that's a headline, that's a buzzword. Talking heads, low information voter. When did you ever hear low information voter for the first time?
I mean, it's the media cycle's been what since. You think the Bush Gore one, 2000, when we messed it up, is kind of when we got real big in it? I don't know. I mean, honestly,
The hanging Chad.
Yeah, I don't know.
The hanging Chad.
But it's funny. Is this?
But I don't know if I ever heard low information voter then. I don't think we've heard low information, low informed. I don't think I ever heard that until Trump. I think Trump and the news cycle got even more aggressive once Trump was elected. And I don't think there would be many people that would dispute that. I think that it's gotten...
probably true because you brought in a new set of voters that were like, I don't care what he says, I'm going to vote for him, or I don't care what has been done in the past, which is traditionally was not the way. Like that's how the smear campaigns in the past derailed a presidency candidate.
Right, they worked.
Trump had so many things that you could have derailed him on. I mean, honestly, in the personal life. But you woke up a new set of mindsets and voters that didn't care about that stuff.
Paige liked that dude from Jump Street. Now, granted, she was that show that he did?
The Apprentice?
Yeah. She was a big fan of that show. I never saw one of them. I heard it was great.
Catchline. That's
this, that, yeah, you're fired. I knew that one because you saw the commercial. Okay, that's fine. She loved him. Now, me, I was kind of on that camp, a little bit. Where's the decorum? Where's the judge-like? Where's the wig? Where's that? And as the policies and as he continued to say what he was going to do almost daily, if not daily, boom, 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 boom. And I thought, man, I've never seen this before. I have never seen this before. I kind of like this transparency. We killed Baghdadi, blah, 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 blah. Wow. Just right out with it, aren't you? And, taunting a world bully, going, yeah, whatever, pull the trigger, pal. And then all of a sudden crossing the DMZ zone is really when I started paying attention to this dude thinking.
He's gotten places that other people haven't.
He's real. There's, whether you like him or you don't, it didn't matter to me anymore. I didn't have to like him. He's real. There's something real here. So I kind of dug that and his policies and things of that nature. I would have liked to have seen what he could have done with the beginnings of immigration, which really just were on the tail end of his presidency, if you remember. I mean, that wall took the majority of to get as far as it did. And really the remain in Mexico and all that stuff was just a kind of last year and a half, 2 years of his presidency. And it wasn't really, I wonder where that would have gone with those negotiations. I remember him making inroads with Mexico and inroads with Canada back then. And I'm like, yeah, that's a good start. That's a good start. Let's keep creeping into all of South America. Let's do more commerce with South America and Central America than we do outside of our continent. That seems to make a lot more sense. I mean, all things involved with that makes more sense to me. So, I mean, Mexico, last time I checked, has oil. And we're busy dinking around in the Middle East since I could remember. I mean, Billy Joel, we didn't start the fire, but it's always burning since the world's been turning. It's a very well-written song. Go see that and comment on it or whatever, listen to it or download it on the U thing or the Ideal.
The U thing.
Look, I'm not techno-savvy. I just know you can get music on that app that you poke.
Thing.
Okay. Okay. But I'm thinking to myself, all right, this is not a big plug here. I just liked the way things were going. I wondered where they would have gone. I really wasn't convinced on COVID, period. I wasn't a COVID denier. I felt like, okay, yeah, it's a virus, and it seems fishy where it came from. I don't know why. This whole, But then Paige was telling me how great Fauci was and how he'd been around since before the AIDS virus, and he was Reagan's
Paige loves herself some Trump and some Fauci. She's got some.
There's a combat there. But she was really kind of telling me, hey, this guy's been around a minute. And the first thing I said before I saw anything else, the first thing I said is, that's a dirty son of a beep. That's a dirty dude. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I go, that is a dirty, dirty man. What do you mean? And I go, he's been a bureaucrat for that long. You can't not be. You will not survive that swamp without cutting corners, cutting deals, and being dirty, period, end of story, for that long. I didn't need to read a book on it. I didn't need to think twice about it. I just knew.
Your 85-year-old lady's perspective of living through history of politics.
Right. And so Lincoln, nobody in those days liked Lincoln. How he was even elected president, man, if they could have recounted back then, they would have. How he even got in there was amazing, but what a world-changing man he became. I mean, his policies, really.
Sure.
Washington didn't even want it.
Yeah.
I mean, just give it to somebody else. And for about 50 years, there was a bunch of interesting characters that were our presidents. Bipolar is how I would describe JFK. I'm a respecter, and also kind of eyebrow popped a little bit. But all in all, interesting historical figure. Must have pissed off the wrong people, and heaven knows Reagan did too. And somebody tried to do whatever they did with Reagan. It's an interesting thing if we step back and go, wait a minute. Let's look at the wiring, or let's really look at the pattern, and let's see if we can't be a little bit more wise. So let me put it to you in attorney firm. Okay. Am I a low information person if somebody comes through our door and I'm speaking with them in Spanish, because you and I speak Spanish, and they have an immigration problem? And okay, you have an immigration problem. I'm going to need to either A, call you because it's in concert with a criminal matter, or I'm going to need to send them to you because it's just an immigration matter. Am I low information because I send them to you? Because I don't have that immigration information that they need, and you do.
Sure. No, I mean, I would tend to say no. So I guess it depends on how you define low information, right?
Right.
So if you're defining low information of I don't have enough information to give you an expert opinion, then maybe in its technical terms. If you're using it as a derogatory statement, like you are not capable, or your opinion doesn't matter, or your knowledge doesn't matter, even if it's on the rudimentary side of things, then no. So maybe it depends on your definition, but I don't think that low information necessarily needs to, I mean, if we take it for its face value, doesn't need to be a bad thing. If you are, like you said, taking the next step of either going and researching it yourself or sending them to somebody that can give them a better answer, I think that makes you
probably smart,
intelligent with your decisions, right?
And so Paige asks, how do I find out? And because she's worried about being low information.
And so everybody's going to be low. I mean, I'm low information depending on what we're talking about.
So immigration, obviously, if it's an immigration issue, they're going to you because that's what you do. All right. So my truck breaks down. And I grew up working on engines, motors. And if it breaks down in a certain area here or there, like it needs a water pump or an oil change, or, swap out the battery, or, radiator, you're starting to get a button. Okay.
No. You're low information. I'm low information. Zero information.
If I'm doing plugs and wires
to a car,
I used to do plugs and wires in my trucks, and they're not wired that way. No pun intended. They're not wired that way now. Yeah. And so Am I low information by taking it to a mechanic?
Yeah, again, depending on how, yes, in the sense that you don't know how to do the wiring, but
Right.
are you, but again, if you're using it, and sometimes it's used derogatory in the sense that, yeah, you're not informed enough to be even participating in this conversation. And that's where I think it's
let's make information again. All I'm trying to say is her question was exactly that. And your response was exactly what you're saying now. You're, if nothing else, consistent. You are consistent, coach. So the beauty is yeah, I'm not going to be able to fix that, make that thing tick. How many times have I spent 15 hours on a 24-minute project, and it turned out like crap?
No, I'm you have you talk to your 80-something-year-old experienced lady. Of my 40-something years, I know exactly not only where I'm good at things, but where I'm not willing to even try to be good at things. Just not willing. I'm not, it's not something that interests me to care about. And so I turn it over to somebody else.
So know when to hold them, know when to fold them, know when to walk away, know when to run.
I'm open. At least I'm learning.
Okay. I think that's the general idea here is we're learning. And so if I need to know about immigration, and we get to debate that all the time, and we get to talk about it and throw out suggestions, and most of the time you and I agree on that subject. We're pretty copacetic there. We recognize there is a problem, and it needs to be fixed, and everybody's going to be kind of not happy about it. That's where it's going to land. But when it comes to roads, highways, global warming, we can agree to disagree. We just don't have the infrastructure right now. Bottom line, we don't have the infrastructure for our nation, our free nation, to keep ticking on the EV time clock. We don't have it. So until we do, and I'm not saying someday, 50, 70 years from now, we wouldn't be predominantly, wherein gas all of a sudden is a rarity.
So do you think, on that question, because we now have mandates, right? We talked about California. We talked about what Biden's trying to push through. Mm-hmm. Do you think the thought process, and I'm asking this objectively without even really an opinion either way, and I probably do have one, but do you think by putting these deadlines, it's like our kids or homework or whatever else, that if you don't put the deadlines in, that the motivation doesn't couple with trying to get the goal that they're trying to get accomplished? I don't know if that makes sense, but if you don't put hey, by 2035, then that infrastructure just doesn't get built because the motivation's not there. The status quo is okay.
Okay, there's two approaches that I would take to this. Number one is devious, okay, and number two is impractical. So they're either, in my opinion, they're either lying or stupid, is what I'm trying to say, just to clean it up. They're either lying or stupid. Because if there was a real market, if there was a capitalistic gain in, kind of like you're talking Lucid, if that was rolling, do you know how fast big oil would be pulling out of all their big oil, and all that money would be swimming into EV, and infrastructure would magically appear overnight? So let me answer the question with a question or an example. Let's go with an example. In California, you have all these toll roads. And the toll roads, I'm sure you've been on them. Yeah. They're beautiful. They're like perfectly.
I can never drive on them though.
Well,
I don't pay for them.
I may or may not try to get away with a little sneak in once in a while, because they are so handy. Yeah. But let's carry on, because they are expensive. But they're beautiful. They're like perfectly paved. The lines are all dialed in, so on and so forth. It takes them a couple of weeks to crank those toll roads out. It would take the state of California a minimum of 5 to 10 years to build a road of that nature. Okay? The difference is incentive. Yeah. If it's private, it's done better than anything government can do. Period.
So, okay, I get where you're going. And so you think instead of
The
instead of
mandate,
punishing,
right,
we incentivize. So
right.
it's like a parenting strategy, right?
Right.
What do you get more result from? Grounding your kid or giving him an incentive? And for the most part, I think most people would argue that incentive would win.
I would say that it just comes down to, so I said stupid or liar. So here, we all know what works. Government does know what works, and it's not them. They're creating this due date that they know is impossible.
Yeah.
And then on the back end, it's not even that. Now, here's where we get to ugly. Here's where we get to, Fauciville. On the back end, you've got all this legislation that goes under the door or under the radar, which
piggybacks.
Right, with piggybacks, paybacks, and this, that, and it makes, what does it do? It makes the cobalt premium, and it puts all sorts of issues on that type of the retrieval of that. And so there's a back door, and there's lube being used every which way but Sunday in D.C. So they say this in California, and the Biden administration is trying to push it, but then they restrict it so much to where it's impossible to achieve. Do they really care is the bottom line. Do they really care? No. I don't think they give a crap about green. I think they give a crap about green. And that's what this whole thing is. We're in all these wars right now. Are we theoretically in these wars? Are we mentally in these wars? Are we just financially in these wars? Are we fighting a war right now? I mean, somebody answer me that, because if it looks like a duck and it talks like a duck, it might be. So I find it interesting that you can legislate in circles. You legislate in circles.
Well, that's what we've been doing for 20 years. And here's my real world example of government bureaucracy that I've dealt with that's kind of similar. We're not on global warming, but again, let's go back to where I am an expert in immigration. So 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, maybe longer. But in the recency, USCIS, which is our government organization in charge of immigration, announced that they were going to bring in-house, because of budget concerns, the production, and this is very simple, the production of cards, right? Employment authorization cards, green cards, the physical production of the cards. It used to be privatized, or at least it was contracted out to factories or whatever else that did it. And we got our cards. Like, in fact, you used to be able to, if a card didn't come in 90 days, you got a temporary card, you complained, something happened, right?
Right.
The norm right now, so for example, if you renew your green card, they now send you a receipt, and that receipt has an extension for a period of 48 months, because they know it's going to take them 48 months to produce the physical card to send that.
You're already renewing it.
It's a production of a card. I can go down to the MVD right now and order a new driver's license, and they give it to me in 5 minutes.
Right.
But our federal government cannot produce a green card faster than 4 years.
Isn't that interesting? And you can.
And so there's my example of
you could go to a third party MVD and wait in no line and get a license.
And so if you had a Republican president right now, that's the type of thinking that the right, and without getting political, but honestly, that's the way it is. We tend to motivate. Just combining two words now. Yeah. We tend to incentivize and motivate the private sector.
Yeah.
To take the government, the big government, out of it.
Yeah.
And for them to make money. But we tend to be a little bit more, not even a little bit, we tend to be a lot more efficient, at least on what I deal with on the government side, when they're using private sector to move things along. And so you're right, in the 4 years that we've had Biden, it's started to, our wait times on immigration have gone substantially up. And there could be excuses for the border, and that's part of it, but that's, again, a Biden concern. He didn't have the infrastructure ready, the court system ready in order to do that. And yeah, just a simple, and that's just a real world example that really doesn't have anything to do with the benefit. The person continues to be a resident, but they can't go down to the MVD and show them their card to get a new driver's license. Right. Everybody questions this receipt and going, what is this? Like the employer's like, is this your green card?
Right.
Everybody's trying to figure it out, and the government's having to come out with memos. Please accept this, companies. This is, and it was 90
Which
days.
creates extra
before.
work. They're coming out with memos and this and that and the other.
And follow up and the amount of service requests that go on to, hey, where's my card?
Right.
People calling me all the time, why has my card not been delivered? And I'm like, well, that's why they gave you a 4-year extension, because for whatever reason, they can't produce the card in 4 years. It should take 30 seconds.
Right. Yeah, I can't beat that example. That's a great government at work example.
Yeah.
You've got, the street that divides you and I, our offices. So we've got the Westover firm on the west side, and we have the Arizona firm on the east side, and Stapley divides us, right? So we've got. How long do you think that work was going on out between us?
That was
our road was being
constructed.
Road construction. Was a minimum
year and a half, you think?
Okay, it was 5 years, because you got to remember.
I just meant in front of my office itself.
It was only a year and a half in front of us.
Yeah.
Right?
But the whole entire
the whole entire, just a little bit, just this mile right here. Just the mile from Broadway to Southern was a 5-year thing.
Yeah.
And we just talked about going through canyons and going through, over the mountains and through the woods to grandmother's house. We go, putting a beautiful, 8-lane highway divided in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's happening in California. Why? Because California can't keep up, and they have people that will. There's money involved. It's capitalism. They're just moving and shaking and moving and shaking, and they can do this quickly, efficiently. And I don't understand why we don't just take a step back, pick our hills that we're gonna die on. We're both fairly moderate folks, and so I don't look forward to a big from the left to the right pendulum.
To the far right, sure.
Both of us are kind of concerned about that. I think a shift for sure we need to see, but I don't. The violent shifts are, and that would be new. And dare to be different. That'd be kind of cool to see a not so violent shift.
Bring it, and like you said, your old lady.
Yeah.
Just let's slowly see how it goes. We'll be fine. We're going to
be all right,
and let's build it in before we make the changes. Right. That's the issue that you've been identifying is that the infrastructure is not in place.
We just don't
before
have
you
it.
make the mandate.
Right. We can declare what you want to declare, I suppose, once 72% of all things necessary is right there. And like I said, if they can build a road like that in California in that lickety split of time, I guess if private, what do we want to say here? We got, free enterprise were to get their hands around just electric cars. Let's just call it electric car, EV. It doesn't necessarily benefit. We can debate all we want if it benefits the outsides or not. Okay, but that's irrelevant, really, because there's both sides of that argument win. And so where do you want to land? It really becomes kind of a nothing burger, a zero burger at some point. The ocean is up 1.5 inches. I don't know. Did that disrupt your dolphins? I'm not sure it did. I look at an article, big article, about teenagers in Hawaii that were arrested for screwing around with dolphins. Okay, and I'm wondering, wait a minute. You throw a teenager in the ocean, even if you're Hawaiian, and you have a really good, savvy way with the ocean, the dolphins are going to outdo you in the ocean. 10 out of 10 times. There's not even a 9.9. What is this article? Come to find out, that's exactly what it was. It's just a bunch of teenagers,
Swimming in the wrong
swimming
place
in
or
the
something?
wrong place. And it was like nothing more, nothing less. No dolphins injured. No dolphins caught in the net.
And there's your headline,
And there's your headline. And it's just like, at some point, we've got to take the old lady approach and go, everything's always been screwy. And it's just screwy, and the screwy looks a little bit different each time you see it. And as we can kind of stop the best we can and be mindful of these patterns, these trends, and go, okay, well, I'm okay with a bunch of electric vehicles, and let's keep making them better and better and better. That's cool. And let's make your investment in Lucid awesome.
Please.
That would be great. If that's the direction we're all going, okay, that's fine. But the market's going to dictate that. The government should stay the heck out. And the reality is I think they just legislate in a circle to where it just keeps everything in this constant. We've noticed this in immigration alone. I mean, it's just this big circle, this big cycle that just keeps going around and around and around. Van Halen hit it on the head. Here we go around and round and round. They're giving me the runaround.
Yeah, no. And immigration's been fun for that. Like in 20 years that I've been in practice, through cycles of presidents, I go jump back, jump forward, jump back, and everybody's landed in the same spot.
It's so awesome. Jump around. You just and it's like, and look, you coach hoops, and in what way are you coaching them different today than you were coached? Because when you were telling me you were quite competitive growing up. How is the game? The game has changed.
Absolutely.
And I don't like the game now, no offense, but I like when I see it played right, and when I see it played with some gusto. I do like that. But how do you coach differently? Are you still coaching? Does fitness still matter? Does strength?
No, and all the elements are still the same, and the discipline and the teamwork. Now, I think we're unique in what we do on basketball because we actually emphasize that teamwork instead of the individual. Yeah. And so, unfortunately, fortunately for us, we beat a lot of teams that probably have way more talent on the floor. Because you move the ball. And every time, I've had ex-NBA players that are coaching club teams, and they'll always come to us and say, your guys' continuity, like, we can never beat this because you guys stay together and you stick together and you play as a team.
So you're like Gene Hackman.
Yeah, a little bit, and that's a little bit old school, but I mean, it's still successful, and,
right.
and each NBA program's looking for that, but each player grows up with this individual mentality, and so it's a thing that has to, Popovich is hanging on for dear life, trying to keep his Spurs mentality, which is a sharing of the ball mentality, and he's had a lot of success. And so, look, yeah, it is what it is, but the elements, the principles are all still the same. You're right. Yeah.
Love it. I think that it's still the same. And so we just need to kind of take that 80-year-old's approach and go, all right. And that way we can understand why Paige would feel low information, but there is no such thing. There is just, I don't necessarily have that information, that skill set.
Let's stop making that a derogatory.
Right. It's not derogatory. It's just, okay, I'm going to talk to Immigration Jesse. I'm going to talk to the Arizona firm if I've got questions about divorce, questions about criminality out of something, or if I got in a big, huge car wreck, I'm going to go talk to somebody. I have so many people come in here and go, I was trying to do it myself and blah, 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 blah. And I said, well, how often, if I catch them early enough, should I hire you or not? I was just rear-ended. I'm banged up a little bit. It's not life-altering, so on and so forth. And I said, okay, let me ask you a question. What do you do for work? And they say, let's just say that they are a hairdresser, okay? And I cut hair at Nico's barbershop, all right? I've never cut hair before. Would you trust me with your haircut? And they're like, no. It's the same thing. You've never dealt with an adjuster before. And so if that's not what you do, you would be far happier if you went with someone that just deals with adjusters all day long. And that's what the team here does. And that's how I didn't used to answer it that way, Westover. I used to answer it, that's pretty minor. Okay, give me a call if you have any questions. That was about 18 years ago, and maybe 19 years ago. I'd answer it that way, feeling like I'm doing them a solid. But when I kept seeing them come back to me with that hole dug up to their neck, I'm like, okay, I can't say that anymore.
I had a consultation yesterday where a nice young couple, really intelligent, young couple with 2 kids, was on their 3rd time filing a green card application. And they had done it twice on their own. And finally they're calling me. Right. And, he asked me, well, what does an attorney do? What am I, I looked at this and I read the instructions and it looked fairly simple. And I go, okay, well, you're 2 times into it. So obviously it wasn't as simple as you thought. That's number one. And I said, and number 2, look, I'm not going to question your intelligence in any way. You are probably a smart guy. And what do you do? Well, okay, I'm an engineer. And if I was asking you an engineering question and you were coming to me for an engineering advice, I'm not the right person for you, right? I said, I have the knowledge and at least the wherewithal to tell you that I have 15 years of figuring out what the government wants. Now, you've been rejected twice because you haven't read between the lines on what the government wants. But there's no way for you to get that information. It's not in the instructions. And so what you've been denied on, what they keep asking evidence for, is not just simply in the instructions. And there's a lot more nuanced stuff going on in immigration that you're not realizing. And so then the next question is, how important is this? If you were to not get your green card, what does it mean to you? Or what if you were to make a mistake on your green card? What's the consequence? Well, I don't know. Well, let me tell you some stories. It can result in deportation. It can result in fraud charges. It can result in ultimately never being able to get your green card because you've already answered a question now that you can't go back on. I had another lady come into my office that messed up on her dates of when she entered in the United States. And she swears she was telling the truth, but she got nervous in an interview, did it by herself, and now it's on the record. And I'm not going to be able to fix it most likely unless I go back in and tell them she was just nervous. And I don't know whether the officer's going to believe that or not because they take a statement and whatever else. And if she would have had an attorney, I would have prepped her before and said, no, you need to nail these down. You need to memorize them. They're going to be consistent with what's on the application. And here's why. And this is why the law works. So look, those situations. And that's why. And I said, why do you think I make money? Right. Why do you think that people pay me to do things? Well, because you know what you're doing. There you go.
Which makes perfect sense. So we take something.
It's in every market, right?
Right.
And that's the low knowledge person coming into person with high knowledge.
That's a person without, let's call it without experience in immigration law. And that's a person without experience in divorce law. That's a person without experience in injury law, in criminal law. That's a person without experience in hair cutting. That's a person without experience in making your motor run again in your vehicle. Or about tires that are kind of important. So low information is not a bad connotation. No. Low information just is what it is. You're gonna have to turn up your microphone. She's already got her hand up.
Well, what Jesse referred to. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can't get him to be quiet today.
What Jesse referred to though, someone who doesn't have that experience but has a high consequence or has a high need for it. So who cares if they don't need a haircut, but that
and your hair even might that's not even your hair might grow back, right? That might not be a bad thing. Or your lawn, you know, a landscaper, you might cut your tree down.
Did your hair grow back?
Yeah, mine didn't. So yeah, maybe there is some more consequences. But yeah, you definitely get into industries, and that's why, and honestly, that's why a pilot gets paid what he pays. That's why a lawyer gets paid. That's why a doctor. Look, honestly, your landscapers get paid less because when they make a mistake, it's not ruining somebody's life.
Right.
Sorry, people, but we get paid as attorneys because the consequences of not doing the application right are much more dire. And so, yeah, absolutely. There's
the car accident. You can't re-car accident.
Yeah.
One time.
Right.
I see that politics that way too, though. I see that education.
That might not be a good analogy, though, because the accident happens.
Very different.
The accident happens, and you're living with whatever that injury might be for the rest of your life, and that might be a minor quirk.
Yes.
That might not be anything at all, and that might be something catastrophic. Anything in between. Politics are supposed to be ever changing and always,
At least the way our Constitution
right,
set up.
the way
right?
the Constitution
we
set up.
ability
It's for the people,
to
by the
vote
people.
something to change.
Right.
Sure.
And so when we get to these points, now we have these folks that are, I want to, like you said earlier in the pod before Paige got here, it's not low information isn't a dig. It's not a negative thing. It's just, I don't have a whole lot of information about that particular thing. And I have some options. I can go interview or talk to. Interview sounds fancy. I can go just, shoot the bull with Joe the mechanic about whatever, or I can go shoot the bull about, or I could just not give a crap about going green. I don't care. I don't care who knows this. I don't care. Does it make me a bad person? Look, I'm in California and the whole place is burning down for the first time. This is many years ago. This is 2001, 2 in there. And I'm there in law school finishing up, and they have those big fires. And we're talking, I've never seen soot and smoke and crap like that rolling ever in my life. And there's fire like right there in the city, all around you. And it's weird, right? It was a weird experience. And everybody's duct taping their windows and this, that, and the other. And I think to myself, because that is exactly when Al Gore was going all apey on the whatever he was going apey then. I think it was warming. I think it changed to global warming by then. So he's going apey on the warming thing. And I'm thinking, this doesn't have nothing to do with temperature. I'm in San Diego, freaking California. The temperature's bloody great. But they haven't been. Why are they over here in California? And I wasn't living there at the time, so why are we not doing anything to all the hills? Why are we not, gutting out the hills and logging and things of that nature? Why are we not doing that? And I wondered that then. And then I saw fire after fire after fire back here in Arizona, back where, home. I'm at home, fire. I mean, catastrophic fires, big ones that affect dang near a ton of our state. And I'm thinking, what in the hell is happening? We grew up for a long time without hearing fire, not to that extent. And then we just have this string of a decade and a half of fires. And now all of a sudden, have you heard of one lately?
Yeah, luckily for us, not too bad.
But do you know what happened? Just under the radar, all quiet like.
We took care of the land?
Yeah. Trump gave a handful of billions of dollars to California, the wildlife, to log. And ain't no fires. Weird, right? But I don't understand why some things just require a little bit of thought. Not a lot, just a little. I'm pretty sure that hurricane happened because hurricanes happen in that area regularly, and it's sad that they did, and let's go help those folks out. I get that. But I'm not going to pin it on some global issue. I'm not going to crown Fauci this genius when I know he's this dirtbag that's been a bureaucrat since he probably was great for Reagan, or before Reagan, I think it was. Probably was a great dude. But at some point, that wears off on you. Being a bureaucrat for that long?
Yeah, and I think back to your our original theme of, okay, is low information Paige's question, where do I go? What do I feel comfortable with?
Yeah.
To me, it's just, look, if you're low information on certain political topics, you're never, I'd say never, maybe you've got a lot of time on your hands and you can be well informed on every bullet point topic. But most of us are going to be well informed on some and low informed on others.
Yeah.
So for me, it's pick your most important issues as you go to vote here in November, prioritize those into doing your pros and cons and where does each presidential candidate fit on those spectrums and
local guys too.
And local as well.
And everything. And
if
who
one of
best
those
represents those?
one of those high priorities you're low informed on, get informed on.
Right.
You've got the time to do that. But if it's 10th on your list and you're low informed and you're not sure which one each one leans, then you take
Right.
your 85-year-old lady's approach and you say, we'll see what happens.
Yeah, life is screwy. Or you call your mom.
You call your-
And you debate it a little bit, and or you
And
talk
maybe,
to
yeah,
your neighbor
maybe-
and you say, "Hey, I know you're kind of hot on this particular topic, and I don't really have a big say one way or the other. What do you think about it?
Sure.
There's this proposition. I don't really know where to go. And you work in that industry. What are your thoughts? And kind of canvas a little bit, do your own little thing. It takes literally no time at all, because we all have people in our sphere that have, their causes. And so, I don't know. I mean, somebody starts asking me about prison reform. Okay. I know a little bit about that.
Yeah, you've got something to say to that.
I've got something to say there, but nothing's on the docket for prison reform right now. So
Nobody's talking to you, huh?
nobody's talking to me. Nobody's talking. It's lonely.
And I'm low information on that too. I don't know what's what now, but I know it's not good. I don't know. You used to be able to count on politicians. That's why
Where have you been all my life?
you used to be able to count on politicians to vote one together, but we don't have that ability anymore. And
Wait. Are you saying the politicians are dirtbags?
But